I am so excited. I've got a treat here for you today. I'm telling you, it is going to be a great episode, and I can't wait to introduce you to my friend, Tresa Todd. She is incredible. She's the founder of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network, a 2022 Inc. Best in Business Award winner. Okay. The RAIN is the largest learning and networking community for women real estate investors in the nation. Okay. And you're going to get to hear more about the backstory of how this came to be. She's a real estate investor, a powerhouse motivational speaker, host of the Without Fear of Her Future podcast, and best-selling author of Without Fear of Her Future, a women's guide to real estate investing. Tresa is a leading expert on becoming financially confident, building multi-generational wealth, and designing a life you love. All right. She's passionate about inspiring other women to pursue a more intentional and meaningful life. And I am not surprised by any of this because I have gotten to know her over the last couple of years and seen it live and in person. So welcome, Tresa. So excited that you're here on the Build Your Brave show.
Well, Megan, I'm excited and honored to be here. This is going to be fun today.
It is going to be fun. And so we've come to know each other. We both have a hunger to know the Lord, to make the most with our one and only lives. And we believe in investing in ourselves, investing in other people. And you believe in investing on a whole nother level. So we will talk about that today. But I just want to jump in and I want the ladies to get to know you a little bit. So when I look across the screen here and as I've interacted with you over the last couple of years in masterminds, at live events, I've been to some of your master classes, all the different things that you offer and you put out in the world. I kind of look at you and I see this version of you. But have you always been this version of Tresa?
Absolutely not. And as a matter of fact, I haven't been this version for very long. It's still so new to me. But, you and I have a lot in common because I think both of our, like if we were going to shout out one word to the world, it would be brave. I guess that's 2 words. But so we really have that in common is us learning to be brave. And then that's our words to the whole wide world is listen, I always say brave people change the world. And shy, timid people are sweet, but they don't usually leave much behind. And so this is not a season for being shy and timid and afraid. This is the time to go full out. So, I love that we have that in common. But no, I was in the medical field for 25 years. I was not an entrepreneur, didn't have an entrepreneurial bone in my body. And so when all this happened, it was such a surprise to me. I never saw it coming, but it was my sons that talked me into leaving a 25-year career in the medical field to come learn to invest in real estate.
I love it. And I know a lot of people may not know your story, but the more and more that I come to know it, I do see similarities in our journey. And both of us came to a fork in the road where I'm sure at times we were both really tempted to play it safe and be secure and stable and do what we've always known. And yet we felt this stirring inside of us for more and this urge to step out and take this leap of faith. Can you talk a little bit more about when you were finally, I know it probably didn't happen the first time that they talked to you about it, but something grew on you in order to take this leap of faith and leave everything you've ever known.
Yeah. It took them 3 years to talk me into it. I mean, I was just watching them be successful and I was just content watching them be successful. And the whole time they're like, Mom, come and let us teach you how to do this. But it was all because of a word from the Lord, I believe. I was teaching a Bible study. I'll make it really short. And out of the book of Joshua. And as I was teaching Joshua to a group of other women and men, I don't know if they got anything out of it, but God was speaking to me. And I knew that he was saying, this is about Joshua, taking the children of Israel into the promised land. And the commandment was, have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And I knew that God was saying, Tresa, have I not commanded you? And so I just made this promise. I'm going to live the rest of my life being courageous. And so I thought I already was. I'd already jumped out of an airplane at that point. And I was, and I thought whenever it says, I'll be with you wherever you go, he was going to be with me when I went to Target. he was going to be, that's what I'm thinking. I had no idea he was about to call me out to something that I was going to move to the big D, which seemed so scary to me because I was a small town girl and I was going to change careers at 50 years old. And then he would call me 14 months later to start the Women's Real Estate Investors Network. So yes, I believe that word is what's carried me through to this day, Megan. Whenever I'm scared, whenever I don't want to do something, I will remember those words. Have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? And that's what makes me continue to say, okay, Lord, I'll do this too, or I'll do it again, or whatever it is.
I love that. Yes, you are now in the Dallas area and doing amazing things, but it started with that obedience in that really scary step and to take that leap of faith. And, I think you definitely left behind that smooth path, that easy path. And haven't you found that sometimes God, he answers your prayers in very conventional and uncomfortable ways?
Yes. This is what's really interesting is I had spent so many years crying out to God. I wanted more. I mean, just crying out to God, use me, Lord, I'm yours. All the things that we say. But then when I was given an opportunity, I always said no. Because I thought the mature thing to do, I needed to stay in this job. At least I knew a paycheck was coming every 2 weeks, and I needed to just be a smart person and responsible person. And so I think back now of all the opportunities that God had given me previous to this, that I just said, oh no, thank you. Oh no, thank you. I don't have the money. I don't have the time, whatever. And so now I just want to shout it from the rooftop. When somebody gives you an opportunity, say yes. I mean, don't pray that God to use you and do big things. And then every time you get an offer, it's like, no, thanks. I'm busy doing this other thing. Yeah.
I know we have like our big, bold prayers and then our really comfortable way that we think he's going to answer it, right?
Yes.
Like it's going to come in this way and in this form and in this timing. And I'm going to feel ready and excited for it. And it's going to be packaged just like this.
Yes.
And that is just not often how God delivers things. And I love that because we are yes girls, say yes to those opportunities. And God has answered so many of my prayers in crazy different ways. And I don't know, looking back, like it's amazing that I even trusted him and took that leap of faith. But tell me now, I know it wasn't easy to leave the safe, to leave the secure, to step out in a new adventure. So other than knowing, okay, God, you've called me, you've commanded me, and you're with me, what else kind of made you brave or made you courageous? And as soon as you stepped out, was it like this beaming ray of light, of easy, smooth path before you?
No, but I'll tell you what, I think I thought it was going to be, because I think when you know God's calling you to do something and you're being obedient, you think the red carpet's just going to be laid out for you. And so I got to Dallas and I thought, my boys were so successful. I'm just going to follow in their footsteps. And I will tell you, girl, it was not that way for me. I mean, I talked to 57 people before I got my very first deal. 57. And I always think back of that. And I'm like, I remember at 17 thinking, oh gosh, what have I done? And then 27. And I'm thinking, I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I need to go back and get my old job back. And then 37. Now I'm feeling like a loser. I'm embarrassed. I can't do this. And then 47 conversations and still no deal. And my sons are like rooting me on. They're like, hey mom, how'd it go? I'm like, you don't want to say 47 times. Well, not very good. And so, but I had left everything behind. My house was on the market. I'd moved all the way to Dallas. I just kept going and kept going and kept going. And then on that 57th conversation, it happened. And I made $20,000 on that first deal. That was 1/3 of my annual salary in one deal. And in my mind, I was like, well, if I can just do this 2 more times this year, I will at least made what I made, And so, yeah, it wasn't easy, but boy. And then once it kind of took off, it's always trouble on the road, but I ended up making more money in that first 4 months than I had in my 25 years worth of 401k money. And I just remember wanting to shout it from the rooftops. I was like, oh my gosh, every woman in the world needs to know that they can do this.
And you know what I love is that is reality. A lot of people see our Instagram highlight reels. They see maybe things you're doing now, your successful events, your master classes, all of the different groups that you lead and the women that you're helping. But what they didn't see is you contending at the very beginning, but you had made a decision. You kind of burned the ships.
Yeah.
You went all in before you had that safety and security. Now that doesn't always work for everybody, but like that really actually served you because there was no going back.
Absolutely.
And so you were committed. So what would you tell people who are feeling like they're trying to do something new, but they're facing rejection, frustration? It's not going the way they thought, and they're not sure they have what it takes.
Well, first of all, don't take obstacles as a sign that it's not God's will or it's not meant for you. Nothing. I mean, if you think about every single person in the Bible, whether we're talking about David had to fight Goliath, I mean, Joshua taking the children of Israel. I mean, they marched around for 40 years before they went to the promised land. It was never easy. It's never going to be easy. And Megan, even as your business grows, the problems just get tougher. They're more expensive. It never gets easy, but it's still it's a life of faith. It's a journey. And we have to see it, and I'm preaching to myself, as fun and exciting and not get discouraged along the way. Stay the path, keep going, because you just don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know. There was never a day that it just happened. It was like all along the way, it just kept gradually. You would take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, 2 steps forwards and 1 step back. But at the end of a year, even with that one, you've made a lot of steps, and you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I am gaining some momentum. So stay in there and fight, girl. It's worth it on the other side.
Yeah. There's something to be said about just the commitment to consistency, and you're going to get that breakthrough, and it's toughest right before that moment. But hearing that people like you that we see as really successful, I just think it's really important to honor the fact that all of, rejection and frustration and just the desire to want to quit and feeling like an imposter. I mean, all of that is stuff that we all go through. And so it's not just you. And if you feel called to it, you got to fight for it. And that is kind of our cocoon season, right? Like where we're struggling, but we're growing our wings. And if you wouldn't have gone through that, I won't make my assumption or judgment, but do you think that you would be the kind of leader that could handle what God has you in right now?
Not. Absolutely not. Because those little problems are nothing compared to these. And I don't mean that to sound scary or, but you get braver as you go. And not only do you get braver and stronger and wiser, but you also begin to trust the Lord. And, I always thought I was on the verge of losing it. Am I ever going to get another deal? Am I okay? And then I just started learning, wait a minute. I mean, God is always going to provide. I don't know how, when. All I'm going to do is keep doing the next best thing, the next right thing. And God is going to do the rest. And so you just, trust the Lord. But your faith grows once you've seen him do amazing things. Now you're just expecting more.
Yep. I love that. And what's amazing is I think as we look back, our character paves the way for us. And what people might not know about you is how faithful you were in all the different seasons of your life. And so, yes, now it looks like you have this amazing opportunity, but that was really because you already had the character. You had those habits. It was just that you finally said yes to God. Yes, you can actually use me and put me in a place where that can be, God can really use that. But tell me a little bit about, because I think this will really encourage some of the listeners, back when you were a single mom and maybe you didn't have as much to give financially, or you didn't have as much time to give, or you weren't sure what to do with your gifts. But how were you faithful then with the little that you had so that God could kind of give you?
Oh, girl, I'm so grateful. And I think about this today. I believe that I'm so blessed, and I give God all the glory. But I think back about the years when I was barely making it, raising 3 kids and living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, every time it was time to buy new shoes, every time it was time for haircuts, I mean, I would just have to believe God. But I always tithe. I've always been a giver, and I paid that little bit. And I love to tell this particular story. At the church we were going to, they were going to build a new sanctuary. And so they wanted they were raising money for the building fund. And I loved my church. I wanted to be a part of it. I could barely pay my own bills. But I remember promising God that I was going to give $20 a month on top of my tithes. That's lunch money for a child. I mean, but I did it. And every time that I would put that extra $20 in that little offering plate, used to offering plates came by. And I would say, God, I thank you, as I'm building your house, you will build mine. Because I dreamed of owning my own home. I didn't even own a home at the time. And I just dreamed. And I look back today and I can still get emotional thinking about it, that God saw my little $20. I think of the little lady that was putting in the 2 mites. If you're just faithful, and it was years later, and it would be my sons that would be the ones that brought me into this and bless me. And I just built my dream home. I'm living in my dream home. I built God's, and God has built mine. And it's just amazing. God is so good, and he's so faithful.
I just love that, because I know that there's listeners who are in all different seasons of their faith journey, of their financial journey, of their dream chasing, dream building journeys. And so I just want you to be encouraged, because maybe you're at that place where, to be faithful, it's a sacrifice always to be faithful. It should.
Yes,
If it's not a sacrifice, then you might not be given enough. But that sacrifice, you can't compare it to anybody else's, And so just be encouraged. If you're faithful with the little that God has given you in this season,
Yes.
right here and right now, he will be faithful to give you more. And I love that.
Absolutely.
I love making sure that people know, people don't just arrive on the scene successful. They have made choices through the last however many decades that have led them to where they are right now. And I just honor you for that, Tresa. I love that so much about you. So one other thing, as I was preparing my heart and my spirit for this call today, that I was just reminded of, I was thinking about my niece, and I know you've got granddaughters, and I know you love them, and I see you post about them and your time with them. And, when I think about my niece or my daughters when they were real little, there's something about a little girl. She's got the wildest of imaginations, right? Good luck telling her no. She knows what she wants. She knows when she wants it. She's not afraid to ask for the world, because she deserves it. Why not? Why can't I have it? Right? There's something about that spirit that the girls, when they're born and raised into a safe, healthy environment, they have a freedom that often gets lost as we progress in life, right? And we hit betrayal and heartache and disappointment and failure, and then we begin to settle. And I think that was something, at least, that I feel like both me and you were challenged in. We almost got to a place or a fork in the road where it would be settling to just stay. And God was saying, no, revive some of that wild, free spirit in you. What would you say to the women who maybe when they think back to their childhood version, they were free and they were trusting and they had big dreams about how they wanted to impact the world, and there were things they wanted to do and gifts that they wanted to have God use, and life has just hit them hard. What would you say to all of them in this season?
Oh my gosh. I would say go back and dream those dreams again. And then, so much about that little girl that you're describing. For every single woman that's listening, you had a dream. You wanted whatever, and you were in your dress twirling around or whatever. And you wanted to do you were willing to do things, even though maybe your parents didn't think you were ready to do them. You were just like, let me loose. I will go do that thing. And if we could have that back, let's go. And listen, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be perfect, but just say yes and just abandon yourself to that. And then the other thing, so take the action. That's what I'm trying to say is don't just ask for it, but then when you're given the opportunity, take the action, go do it. But then the other thing is think how you want to give your little girls everything they ask for. We want to give them. That's how our Father is looking at us. He's looking for women to step up and lead and do amazing things. And he is yelling, go do it. I will bless it. Go. And we're just so scared, Lord, if it's your will. He's like, it's my will. Go. And so, he literally said, go into all the world. And so let's go. Let's do it. Don't expect it to be easy. Expect that it's going to be harder than you think. It's probably going to cost you more than you think, but keep going and do it anyway, because first of all, the blessing is on the other side, but also there's joy and there's so much excitement. I think another thing that you and I have in common is we love excitement. I love adventure. I love the journey. I'm about to embark on something brand new. I just signed some papers yesterday, and I'm scared, but I'm excited at the same time because this is something, a little new for me. So I think that's what God always wants. Let's just quit settling. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what situation you're in. Girl, God's got something more for you.
I want to take just a minute and personally invite you to attend the Build Your Brave experience at the end of September. Come hang out with me and my team Brave. I'm telling you, these are the women who have made me brave. They've been there for me in the ups and the downs. They are the real deal. And listen, we've been praying for you, planning for you, preparing for you, and it is going to be an incredible, life-changing couple of days. I know that it's hard to get here, but I'm telling you, if you need your joy restored, if you need some fresh strength, if you need to strengthen your faith, my goodness, just get yourself into this room. I'm believing that is going to be a weekend of breakthrough and awakening and freedom, and that you are going to leave here ready to go back home and love your people well, overflowing in joy and all of the good things, right? So sometimes we got to get away to invest in us. Would you consider it? Think about it, pray about it. Some of you already know in your heart you want to be here. Make the decision. Once you say yes, the path and the way emerges, all right? You'll figure out all the other details. So get your ticket today because we want you to be here. If you want more info, more details, you have any questions, just do this. Text 1-808-500-7756 and just put the word info. We will get you everything you need to know, all right? We cannot wait to hang out with you. We'll see you then. I think as women, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves and we want it all to be perfect and we want to make sure we're ready and we don't want to inconvenience anyone around us. And we're worried about all of the things, but we get this one life. Yeah. And if you think about it, I've heard that statistics or that quote, I guess, that talks about at the end of people's lives, one of the greatest regrets is not what they've done, but it's all the things that they didn't do. It's the people who did not live an authentic life to themselves, but instead they shaped their choices and their days and their one life trying to meet the expectation of the people around them. And so just an encouragement to all of you listeners, because Tresa and I need this reminder often. That's why we're friends. That's why we're a part of some of the groups that we're in, because yes, life is crazy. And yes, our loved ones need us. And we want them to be blessed by the way that we're living our lives, right? That's when I'm thinking about the kind of legacy that I want to leave my daughters. It's one where I loved them and I was there for them and they were my priority. And, right, it's the and life. I showed them that they also can be a mom and chase their dreams and that they can be God's little girl as old as they get. And they're going to set out an adventure. They're going to skin their knees. They're going to rip their dress and they're going to make some memories while they do it, And so I love that. Now, Tresa, share with me. So we also have this in common. We both created something out of a need. So obviously when I was kind of starting my new life and left everything I knew, I created Team Brave. because I knew that I was going to be lonely. I had never done this before, and I needed some people around me to make me brave. Now, when you started this new chapter in your life, you started to notice that there was a big gap and
Yes.
you needed to fill it. So let's talk about that for a minute.
I was going to all these networking events. Networking is huge when you're investing with my sons. And I would go excited. I'm a people person. I moved to a new city and I've got this new career, and I would go excited. I'm getting dressed up. I'm going to go. And I would walk in and it was just men, men, men. And I was like, where are all the women? And one of my sons literally said, Mom, why don't you start something for women? And I'll do that someday. And it was them who put my feet to the fire. They're like, why not now? But you are 100% right. I wanted women to know. I mean, here I had been for 25 years. I mean, you're burned out, you're barely making it. And I knew that's where all my friends were. That's where the lives that they were living. And I was like, oh my gosh, they need to know. I always say average women like me need to know that we do not have to stay in this kind of a lifestyle. Because, Megan, most average people never even hear a message like the one we're shouting from the rooftops. I did not realize that there was another way to live. I thought I was doing all the right things. I was busting my butt, going to work every day, being faithful, having no idea that there was more. And so what we both get to do is give other women an opportunity to say, girl, come along with us. And we're going to show you a whole new way of living so that you can get out of debt. You can send your kid to college. You can pay for their wedding, and you can give back and make impact and do some of the amazing things that you and I have been able to do.
Yes, I love that. And that's, I think, one of the best parts about the circle that we surround ourselves in is it's not just about what we can make for ourselves and our family, but because we prayed years ago, maybe decades ago, to be part of the solution. And when God has broken our hearts for the things that break his heart, right? Like you and I getting to partner to see that new A21 office get opened in Athens, like we got to be part of that because we work hard, because we say yes to the opportunity that God gives us, and we get to be part of that impact. And so I love that. And surrounding yourself with other people who, because it is interesting. Did you have everybody support you, believe in you, and understand you when you decided to take this big leap of faith?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, people are thinking I'm crazy. It's irresponsible. What if it doesn't work? All the things. And you just have to go sometimes and just chase your dream. Go do the thing. If you feel God's calling you, and listen, if you're here listening, then God's probably calling you to something, because I wasn't listening to things like this. I mean, when you're in a place that you're listening and you're showing up for these kinds of podcasts, something's going on in your spirit that is calling you to more, and you're listening to these kinds of things. At some point, you have to just say yes and quit sitting on the sidelines, and not just take a few steps, but just jump in all the way and do it.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. Now, when you think about some of the things that have helped you to, propel you forward, because there's the initial yes, and then there's the I got to wake up every day and say the yes in obedience all over again. So what have been the top things that have helped you to keep moving forward, even in the days and in the seasons where you're like, oh, it might be easier just to go back?
Yes. Well, there's a few things that I think of. First of all is staying in the Word of God, and then the second one is surrounding yourself with the right people. I mean, oh my gosh, if you don't surround yourself with other people that are going higher, other people that have ambitions and dreams, then you're gonna be odd. And that's the way it was for me. Now all of a sudden I didn't fit completely in with everybody that all of my friends from my lifetime. And most of them did cheer me on and they were excited, but I couldn't have the same kinds of conversations. It was so different. And so I had to surround myself with other people that also had dreams and ambitions and goals, and that said, yes, you can do this. And I could watch them do it. And that gave me, oh my gosh, if they can do it, I can do it. So, And then the other huge thing for me was self accountability. I had to learn to be self disciplined and do the hard things. And it is hard, but again, it's fun. But it takes just getting up and doing things you don't want to do, continuing to do them, even when it doesn't seem like you're seeing success. Sometimes there's not any momentum, but you just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And eventually you begin to see what you've worked for.
You mean it's not all glamorous?
It is not very glamorous at all.
I would agree with that. Yes. But everyone needs that reminder because again, I think when we live in this, I love social media because we get to be a light and it's just a platform where we have opportunity. But if we're not careful, we do get a skewed perspective on success and
Absolutely.
highlights and, what it really takes because there's so much happening behind the scenes.
Absolutely. That's what's awesome about, that the network that we have is because, hey, we all have this wonderful Instagrams and we're on stages and it's all great. But my goodness, we got on a Zoom call and we're crying to each other and we're sharing our hearts with each other. It's so vital. It's so needed. Every woman needs a team of other brave women, a community that will cheer them on, encourage them along the way. It's vital. None of us can do this by ourselves. We weren't called to do this by ourselves.
Yes, I love that. And so you created this space, this room. I mean, your first meeting, did you have was it full? Was it exciting? You mean, how did this start and get to where it is?
That very first meeting, I just finally put a date on the calendar. I was like, okay, and it was in August of 2017. So yeah, it's August right now. So, and I was so scared. First of all, I was thinking, do women even want to learn how to invest in real estate? And then what if they ask me questions and I don't know the answer? I only had 14 months experience, which I just think is so crazy. I don't know what I was thinking. But 40 women, exactly 40 women walked in the door that day. I was delighted with 40 women. I didn't know if 5 were going to show up. And who knew from that? And I just taught them what I knew. I didn't even know that much more than they did at that time, but I kept growing along with them. And then who knew that it would eventually be the largest women's real estate investors network in the nation? Girl, you have no idea what's on the other side of your yes.
Yep.
You have no idea. And see, I think another thing that you and I had in common, even though I was in the medical field, I was very involved with ministry. So when I was crying out for God to use me, I always thought if I left the medical field, he was going to call me into ministry. There was no part of me that thought he was going to call me into business or investing. And so it didn't make sense. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go because I knew he had commanded me to go and do this thing. But it was but who knew that he was going to call me to ministry, business and ministry together. And now I get to reach people. We get to reach people that are never going to walk through the doors of a church, but we can share our knowledge about business and we can share Jesus at the same time. And man, I'm so excited. And I never, ever saw myself as a businesswoman.
I think that's what's amazing. What probably one of the messages I want to make sure gets resonated today is that God uses the willing, right? He doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. Like he's like, who's raising their hand? Who's willing to stand in the gap and pray? Who's willing to step out? And, we feel like, well, I don't know if I can slay the giant. I don't know if I can, part the Red Sea. Well, good. That's his job, not yours. You just got to raise your hand and say, I'm willing. And if we look at the Bible, like those men and women that he used, I mean, they were murderers and prostitutes and tax collectors and they were changed by Jesus and they were willing, and so I think that you and I both have had our prayers definitely answered in unconventional ways that I never thought I never would have thought I would be a health and a business coach, doing the things that I'm doing. But when you just take one step of obedience and you keep walking in that, you don't know how God's going to use you and answer your prayers in crazy ways. So I love that. What would you say to Team Brave today? They're hearing you, they're hearing your story, they're hearing this episode. now they're kind of nervous, kind of excited. They do feel like they're called to a little bit more. What is that next step? What do they do when they get off this podcast? Like, so they don't just fall back into like regular, busy, noisy life.
Yeah. Will you say yes to the opportunity that's in front of you? What is it? Take the action, whatever it is. I mean, I know you're having a huge event coming up. I mean, every woman should be in that room. First of all, they're going to surround themselves with the right women. They're going to hear amazing speakers that are going to motivate them. They're going to hear what they need to hear. I believe that a Holy Spirit, God is going to talk to every single woman. Breakthrough is going to happen. And I mean, if that is their next step, if you don't know your next step, at least get in the room with the right people that are going to lead you to that next step. And what is it that God's calling you to do? Say yes, and just be willing to do it ugly. Be willing to do it. It's not going to look good. It's not going to be perfect. Do it anyway and see what happens. And because the only alternative is to do nothing and stay where you are. And that does not give me much hope. I mean, that is very boring, and it's hopeless. Let's not live hopeless. Let's jump in and dive in and go do whatever God it is that God's called you to do. And I know that some women don't know. And some do, that are listening right now, and they're hearing this and they're like, I'm doing the thing. I'm finally doing it. Then there's others that are listening and they're like, I don't even know what that thing is. I don't know. Then surround yourself with people that are going to help you find. You got to surround yourself with people and get into the Word of God, and then just be willing to say yes. When opportunity comes, be listening. Have your ears attentive. When opportunity comes, recognize it. Stop saying, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I can't. And start saying, I'll figure out the money. I'll find the time, and I'm going to do it.
That is a good word. I love it. I love it. And that is why it's a leap of faith.
That's
because
right.
a lot of times we don't want to sign the dotted line unless we know all the details. But, you know, a lot of times when God was telling different people to go and do something, he didn't give them all the details, not Joshua, not Abraham, not Moses. He was like, you go, and then I'm going to tell you where to go. Pack up your stuff in that direction, and then I'll let you know. But like one brave step, one bit of obedience, and that is why we're dependent on God, because every day we wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm a yes girl, but where are you leading me today? What are you leading me into? I'm not sure that I have what it takes, you know? So I love it. Thank you, Tresa. I'm so excited that you are going to be in the room at the Build Your Brave conference. You have got an incredible message. I'm excited for the women to catch your contagious spirit, your passion for the Lord, your faithfulness, and all of like the business strategy that you have. It is just going to be incredible. It's going to be an amazing few days. And I'm so glad that we get to do this together. Any last words that you have?
Well, first of all, I'm honored to be in that room with you. I love what you're doing, Megan. You are absolutely precious. You know that. I really, really mean that. Just praying for you. And I know God's using you mightily, and he's got so much more for you. And I'm so glad I get a ringside seat to see that. So I just bless you, and I'll see you in September.
Woo-woo. I love it. I love it. All right, ladies. Well, do not miss out on Tresa. Follow her on Instagram. Is that the best place to find you? And see what you're up to, because you've got so many different offerings. What are the couple, and we'll link them in the show notes, but what are a couple of the Instagrams that you would say to follow you for more info?
Yeah. Instagram. It is Women's Reign, REIN. That's Women's Real Estate Investors Network. We constantly have master classes coming up. I'd love if you're interested at all. It is withoutfearofherfuture.com, withoutfearofherfuture.com. And that'll tell you when our next master class is. And I would love to see you there.
Awesome. I love it. All right. Well, one thing we do at the end of our podcast, Tresa, is we just have the guest just say a quick prayer and blessing over all the listeners. So if you just want to do that real quick.
I would love to do that. Well, Heavenly Father, I thank you for every single listener that's listening today. And Father, I am praying that they would hear you speaking their name. Have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? And I don't know what that looks like for every individual, but I know that you're calling them to something greater, better, probably a little bit harder. But God, you're going to be with them wherever they go. So I'm just reminding them not to be afraid, not to be discouraged, to just say yes. And Lord, I pray blessing and abundance and strength and courage into every listener in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right. We received that. All right, ladies. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please share it with others. Let's be hope dealers. Spread the hope, spread the love. Now go and let's be brave. Have a great week.